I told them they should name themselves Harmony, because I thought that would be a cool name for them, instead of just choir. Now that I've announced it from the pulpit, of course it will be done. We're doing John 13 this week. It's a popular story about when Jesus washes the feet of his disciples. And I'm never going to wash anybody's feet. It's something that has gone out of style, and I don't mean the principle of it. What I mean is that we all wear shoes now. And usually your feet are not the dirtiest part of yourself as you travel through the world. But back in the day, they all wore sandals. And so there were laws and prohibitions. I mean, they wouldn't sit down to eat with each other unless your feet were washed. And it was something that a Jewish slave or servant was not allowed to do. It was a task that was so menial and so looked down on that only non-Jewish slaves were allowed to wash the feet of the people arriving at the house. And so it adds a little clarity to what Jesus was doing. He was doing something that, I don't know what your version of the worst possible task you can think of, the most demeaning task you could do, but that's what Jesus did. No one else got up to do it because they had been raised in a culture where it was never presented to that there was an option. From youth on, from the child on, a servant washed your feet. And of course, being part of the chosen crowd, you were never a servant. And so the thought that you would have to get up and you would even think of volunteering to wash another person's feet, it never entered your mind. That was for somebody else to do. That was for a servant to do, not a Jewish servant. That was for somebody else from one of the other nations who had been captured and forced into servitude. That was their job. And so it says in John 13:3, it says, Jesus knew that the Father had given him authority over everything, and that he had come from God and returned to God. So he got up from the table, took off his robe, wrapped a towel around his waist, poured water in a basin. Then he began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel he had around him. Just a thought about identity. It says, Jesus knew the Father had given him authority over everything, and that he had come from God and returned to God. He knew, this is the beginning of the Last Supper. This is the first scene in John's version of the Last Supper. And the first thing is, Jesus knew he had authority over everything. And so his reaction is interesting to me, because the first thing he did was to get up and be a servant to his disciples. The basin, the water, the bowl, the towel were all sitting at the door. No one else would think of it except Jesus. And what I'm really looking at is, do you think Jesus lost value in his identity when he did that? Did he become less valuable as a king when he got up to wash the feet of his disciples? Did somehow, was there a kick or a bruise in who he was? Because it says that he knew exactly who he was. And I'm wondering out loud, what do I consider valuable? And of course the question being, what do you consider valuable? What are the things that you won't do to serve Jesus, to serve humanity? Who are the people that are so far gone that you won't be kind to them? I think it's mostly a fear that we'll somehow lose value. That we won't be as human, as valuable as humans if we wash feet. Especially things that we've been brought up on our whole lives, that we don't even know exist in our perspectives and how we see the world, because we just haven't been there yet. I think we can all agree that knowledge is a lifelong process. And learning yourself is a lifelong process. And learning Jesus, as it just goes on and on. It's being in that realm of understanding. And yeah, I wonder what decreases value in my eyes. And my own value. If I'm nice to somebody if I don't need to be right, if I'm willing to lose an argument because I know it's not important enough, and there's no identity kit. Nothing takes my value away except my relationship with Jesus. It's how God views me because I believe in Jesus. And so there's nothing another human can do to me at any level to take away my value and my identity. There's nothing. But I find things sometimes where I get frustrated and angry, and I go, that takes away my identity, the value in their eyes of who I am, because I'm expressing myself as an angry person. I'm expressing myself as a greedy person. I'm expressing myself as an impatient person. And so in their eyes, I become less valuable as a follower of Jesus. And in their eyes, I would imagine a relationship with Jesus isn't something I really want to see. Don't. If I'm going to be like that, then why bother? And so it's knowing that nobody can insult you. It's knowing that no one can get under your skin. They can try, of course, but there's just words, sticks and stones. Kind of the opposite of our culture today, where everything you say gets under somebody's skin and is worthy of some kind of whipping. And then there's the case of Peter. Peter comes up next. He says, when Jesus came to Simon Peter, Peter said to him, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? And Jesus replied, you don't understand now what I am doing, but someday you will. No, Peter protested, you will never, ever wash my feet. And Jesus replied, unless I wash you, you won't belong to me. Simon Peter exclaimed, then wash my hands and head as well, Lord, not just my feet. Just totally pandering. Because he can't keep his mouth shut, because he doesn't have a clue what's going on. Doesn't have a clue. Just trying to get back some credibility. They always pick on Peter. I know the people who wrote the Bible, even if they didn't write it together, they went their own ways. Before they left, they said, you know what, if we ever write a story about this, Peter's the fall guy. Every single story, he's going to say the dumb thing. But what was at work in Peter's mind? Why would he say no to Jesus? Because your king doesn't wash your feet. King doesn't wash your feet. There's a value system going on. There's an analysis of the world that Peter saw through. And I get it. We have ranks based on our titles and based on our labels. And we're never supposed to break rank to do something subservient when we're not in service. That's just the way the world is. That's what we've been brought up in. Peter thought Jesus was losing value by washing his feet. That wasn't something. He could raise people from the dead. You could walk on water. You do all those things. You don't wash feet. You got more important things to do. And that's why Jesus said, you're not going to understand what I'm doing right now. You won't understand what I'm doing right now. But then again, I don't know, it just keeps coming back to me. And how well do I understand Jesus' kingdom? How well do I understand when I call myself a follower of Jesus? And to know that washing feet is a principle about sacrifice and servanthood without loss of identity, and not just actually washing feet when it's every circumstance that you're in with anybody else. None of the apostles knew Jesus. They followed him, and they were after they would listen to what he was teaching like we do. But Peter was still, you're not washing my feet. What do you say to Jesus? He wants to serve you. He wants to wash your feet. He wants to come to you as a servant. And what's really odd is if you remember that Jesus said he revealed the Father. He revealed God. I am God. And God came and washed his disciples' feet. Would you let Jesus wash your feet? And feet is just a metaphor. Would you let Jesus grovel in front of you to humble himself for you so that you could live and learn how to treat others? I mean, what level would you go to? The thought of Jesus serving you. I think we all know that none of us are worthy of that kind of attention or love. Yet God is love. He was doing only what the Father showed him. He was saying only what the Father told him to say. God revealed as somebody on his knees before his disciples washing feet. I saw you try to do that sneakily. Did you think I wouldn't see that? Grovel before me. Think about it. It's you who Jesus is coming to wash your feet. Yeah, it's the disciples there at the table, and it's fun if we can separate ourselves from it and just see a cool story. But as a follower of Jesus, he's washing your feet. Will you let him? Or do you go, oh, not only my feet, Lord, but my hands and my head and my clothes, start trying to be like a goofball to cover up your uncomfortableness. It's kind of odd. If you put John 15:3 and John 13:10 together, and I put down John 15:3 here, it says, you are already, this is Jesus talking to his disciples later on into the Last Supper. He says, you are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Jesus' words have that's what I said at the beginning. Your prayers to Jesus and Jesus' reaction with the prayers and the Holy Spirit working in you have the ability to clean your mind. When we're reading about Jesus cleaning feet, that starts to clean your mind when you see the sacrifice and the humility that does not touch your value or your identity. What you do in that respect makes you no less in the eyes of God. In John 13:10, right above that, it says, Jesus replied, a person who is bathed all over does not need to wash, except for the feet, to be entirely clean. And you disciples are clean, but not all of you. And he's talking about Judas. He's not trying to guess who's not clean. He's talking about Judas in that instance. But your feet touch the ground. I can totally bathe once a week, once a month, and go walking over to my friend's house. And if I'm wearing sandals, the only thing that's getting dirty is my feet. And you wash your hands. If you look at all the laws about washing hands and washing feet, you realize it's all the stuff that touches the world. You cannot go through this world without getting dirty feet. Impossible. Try to wear bare feet and go walk around at Speed golf course after it rains. It's just mud. It was actually in the Jewish temple system, there were laws and purification rituals for sins that you committed you couldn't stop from committing them. It wasn't an intentional sin. It was either ignorance, or it was just bodily function, or it was just your job. There were sins associated with holiness that you could not avoid. It's being human. And they call them purification rituals. Because when you walk through this world, your feet get dirty. Your hands get dirty. We become unholy. And that's the whole purpose of rituals and purifications and the cleansing of feet. It's so that you can go before God with, it's you want to be clean. You want to be separate. You want to be different than the world. You want to be different than the valuers handed. You don't want to react harshly. You don't want to react quickly, snap, unless you're really smart and you can get to patience like that, which I can't. That's dirty feet. That's why Jesus had to wash his feet. We don't understand it. They did understand it. We understand it now. The cleanliness of being bathed by the living water. The cleanliness and the peace that comes as we are separated from the values of the world, as we bathe and have Jesus wash our feet, which allows for unity. Purification rituals. Let's do Peter part 2, Matthew 16, and we all know this one too. It says, but Peter, this is Jesus just said, he said something. Oh, he said he was going to Jerusalem. He was going to be handed over all the leaders there, the systems of religion and politics that were going to kill him. He's going to die, going to be in the ground 3 days, going to come back to life. And Peter says, he listened, and then he kind of took Jesus aside, like, hey, come here, buddy, I got something to tell you. He said, he began to reprimand him for such things. Heaven forbid, Lord, and I'm sure this is redacted, I'm sure there were other words spoken, this will never happen to you. And Jesus turned to Peter and said, get away from me, Satan, which is an escalation in the rhetoric. I'll grant you. He didn't say, hey, Peter, wait, let me teach you a few things. Straight. Get away from me, Satan. You are following the world's values. You're following the world's systems. You are a dangerous trap to me. The seduction of getting off of the path to follow Jesus in his kingdom and to take it easy and let the world decide how you're going to think. Man, is that easy or what? You are seeing things merely from a human point of view, but not from God's point of view. And that's the way it is with sacrifice. It's hard to understand that sacrifice in God's kingdom means being, what we read, being a servant above all else. Jesus said, I didn't come to be served, I came to serve. If you want to be first in my kingdom, you must be a servant. There's no accolades. Nobody hears your voice. In fact, they probably prefer you didn't talk. You just do your job. Humbly, gently, relentlessly, passionately, but your job is a servant where Jesus has put you to serve. And you wake up every morning and it looks the same, but you know it's not. You know it's not. You're putting away a treasure in heaven. And that's what Jesus was doing, modeling to them. He says, I'm giving you an example. This is how you live like God. You wash each other's feet. And again, don't get caught in the metaphor. You forgive each other. You have mercy on each other. You encourage each other. You give of yourself to each other. Nobody does it perfect. There's no such thing as perfect except for Jesus. You sign cards. You make telephone calls. You show up to unite and encourage, knowing that your presence in a gathering of believers is precious because we encourage each other. That's washing feet. That's seeing the world from God's perspective and not the human perspective, which is utterly focused on self. And it's getting more and more self. And there's no limit, there's no spectrum in terms of what humans can do to wash others' feet. Somebody who can sing cleanses you. And God's given that gift. Someone who could write, someone who's good at business, someone who can cook, someone who can sweep floors. It's all gift. It's all leveling. It's all washing feet. And treating people in that manner, which washes them. The encouragement you give to a housekeeper at a hotel cleanses. Because you know what? Mostly people just go right by them. 17 years in the hotel industry, housekeepers are the most overlooked, under-respected job in the world. 18 rooms a day they did at our hotel. People just treat them like junk. That's not cleansing. Our role, there's no bump, there's no deficit in your identity by being kind and patient and merciful and forgiving. You are still the same person in God's eyes. In fact, in Jesus' upside-down kingdom, being patient and merciful and kind and forgiving actually raises your bank account. But it's seen. Do you think Jesus, it comes right after this, it says, right after this verse, it says, then Jesus told his disciples, and this is Matthew 16:24, if anyone wants to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. And I think we've established that you're all here, that you all want to follow Jesus at some level. But this, pick up your cross, and of course, don't get stuck on the cross. It's about you not looking for your best interest when it comes to somebody else's life. Or do you think Jesus lost value when he died on the cross? Do you think he became less valuable as an identity? Was it a bad thing for him to get nailed to a cross? He said, I can call 10,000 leagues of angels, troops. I could call so many troops of angels that they would wipe out the entire planet, no problem. I got that power. So I'm wondering, where's the cross? Was that a loss right there? Was that a loss? Is he less of a God? Is he less of a person because he allowed himself? Did he lose value? Do you stop and think, yeah, Jesus, I kind of get it, but that whole thing about you being nailed to a cross, and that's not very powerful. So when he asked you to pick up your cross, do you think it doesn't show me in a good light? It doesn't, it's not powerful. People won't respect me. People won't think that I'm the man or the woman. Oh wait, that's the statue. We can do it, woman. That need that we have for identity, that need where we have for value, not from God, from other people, from homemade spotlights. I don't know. That's just a question. Could God really be like that? That dying on a cross is really the highest act of sacrifice that he could do because God so loved the world that he died on a cross? That's just, did he lose value? Because it says, Jesus said, for whoever wants to save his life will lose it. But whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. What the heck does that mean? Lose my life to find it? Lose your life for Jesus' sake? Can any of us, not me, I know I can't, can any of us say that we have lost our life for Jesus' sake? And just giving up our life for Jesus' sake, to be a total 100% servant, where everything we do, we think about serving. I can't. I'll start, and I might be the only one, but that's life. We might be the only one. But it's still something to think about. It says, what profits a man if he gains the whole world, if he achieves every success and everybody loves him, but loses his soul? Loses his soul. Finds out that he can't change anymore. He doesn't know how to change. The world has become so ugly and so bitter, and my conscience is so seared, and my heart is so seared, that all I can do is get into arguments and look at other people as fools and idiots, wandering around, tramping in, ruining my time on the earth. Why couldn't you just wipe them out, Jesus? Oh my goodness. Why couldn't you just kill all the people that aren't like me? It'd be way easier. Well, for a second. Until I found out that everyone was like me. What can you give in exchange for your soul? And I think your soul here represents the deepest part of your heart, the passion in that part where you want to attack your life through what God has given you, God animating your life. What is so important to me that I would not want Jesus to wash my feet? What is so important to me that I would tell Jesus, nah, you know what? That plan about dying on the cross ain't going to happen. What part, and I don't want answers, but it's something we should probably all ask ourselves. If you're looking for who you are, without fear, knowing that God is passionately dedicated to saving you and to loving you, and we don't have a clue how deep his love for us, or how wide his love for us, or what he will do for you because he loves you. Yes, he'll go to a cross. Will you let Jesus die for you? Will you let him wash his feet, your feet? Or do you see things merely from a human point of view? Do I see things merely from a human point of view? Where other people's slings and arrows just bite at me. Knowing that God loves you so much, he died for you. And the peace is there. He said, what can a man give in exchange for his soul? I don't know. People sell their soul. You don't have to, it doesn't look like the devil because you're selling it to a system. Or you're selling it to some other kind of greedy, lusty, worldly entity. But we'll sell our soul. I'll step on your neck if you don't believe in me. Believe what I believe. I don't care. Right? I mean, that's the attitude of the world. You've become objective to me. You're all objects. And I only see you as objects for me to manipulate and paint and mold in the way I want you to be. You lose your soul. It's a bummer. And this is not a heaven and hell thing. Far be it for me to ever judge anybody. Jesus said he died for the world. I'm good with that. I'm working on myself and my sins before I'm going to start in on all your sins. And luckily, I have an eternal amount of sins that Jesus needs to cover. So I'm not trying to judge you here. It's just questions. What's valuable? Was it a valuable act? If it's a valuable act for Jesus, and he said that you say you're a follower of Jesus, will that act of sacrifice become a valuable act for you? Will you gain or lose identity? By just carrying that around, and there's no limit to what you will do. Oh, the things you'll do. You'll do all the things that you love to do, no matter what they are. Sell refrigerators. Go for it. But it's just a question, because the way it works is, this is a victory. This is a victory. This is the winning moment. This is the winning moment when he showed what sacrifice is. When Jesus the temple curtain was torn, access back to God in Eden was restored. This is when he won. The law broke itself. The laws that they were claiming was actually that we should live by actually killed an innocent man. Law 0, innocent man 1, game goes to innocent man. Law loses. Law loses. This is a victory. This is a victory. And that's why we're going to sing Victory in Jesus, which is song number, anybody? What is it? Thanks. 5'11".